are two sides that are better going forward than they are defensively.
Well, Manchester United last week at Sheffield United were absolutely dismal for an hour.
They've got Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial firing and scoring goals.
Is that he has been heavily linked with the move to Manchester United in the past, and maybe there might just be a little bit of extra incentive for him to try and impress.
Well, one of the standout fixtures in the Premier League this weekend takes place on Sunday at Old Trafford. It is Manchester United against Aston Villa. Tom will be fighting the corner of the home team. Aidan believes that Aston Villa could come out on top in this encounter. Let's start off by looking then at the match odds. 7-2 for the draw. Odds on for Manchester United to win, and as much as 6-1 in some quarters for Aston Villa to come out on top. Firstly, United, they have looked good at home in patches, Tom, this season, but you're not sure which Manchester United are going to turn up at the moment.
Well, that's it, but I think at home, at Old Trafford, they've been relatively consistent. They've had some eye-catching results, most notably the 4-0 on the opening day against Chelsea. And, you know, a lot of talk has been about the negatives with Manchester United of late, but the poor results they've had, drawing with Sheffield United last week, that was away from home on their own patch. They are a good, strong, solid team. They've got Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial firing and scoring goals once again. They also have a really, really good record against Aston Villa. They haven't lost to Villa, home or away, since 2009, 10 years ago. They've won the last three most recent meetings between the two sides as well. So for me, this should be a relatively routine win for Manchester United. They had the Europa League away in Astana during the week, but that was none of the first team really going there. So they should be refreshed, recharged, and ready for this game.
OK, well, Villa then, a chance of a potential upset. Yes, as Tom says, they've not got a great record against Manchester United, but ever, if you've got a chance of going to Old Trafford and win, you'd say about now is the time to do it.
Well, Manchester United last week at Sheffield United were absolutely dismal for an hour. I take the point that that was away from home, this is at home, and they are a different beast at Old Trafford. But if they're anything like what they were last weekend, Aston Villa can really shock them and can get at them. Villa beat Newcastle on Monday 2-0. They were really impressive in that game as well. I think Jack Grealish and John McGinn and other players, Tyrone Mings at the back has been excellent for Aston Villa. I know that United are good, and Villa actually away from home haven't been great. Their results have only won one away from home so far this season, but they will raise their game at Old Trafford, and I can see Villa getting a result.
Well, I have to say, 6-1 is a tempting price in terms of an away win here, but despite being odds on, which I think is short, I do think United will probably come out on top. Also, there is the chance that Paul Pogba might return as well for the host, so I do think I'm just going to edge towards Tom on this first argument. We're going to turn our attentions now to round two, and that is a player selection in terms of the odds for this Sunday's game. What are you looking at here, Tom?
Well, it's hard to look beyond Marcus Rashford scoring in this match. He's scored in his last 5 appearances for club and country and appears to be returning to form, even against Sheffield United last week, whereas Aidan says United weren't good for 70 minutes of that game, but Rashford then came alive and really drove them home, got himself a goal, an assist as well. He was really impressive during those final 15, 20 minutes, and his form in general has improved over the last month and a half. He's 17 to 20 to score any time. Anthony Martial, another player I mentioned earlier on, is probably another alternative option, because if Rashford doesn't score, you'd expect Martial to pick up the slack. He's 5 to 4 to net any time, so there's a bit more value with him as well. I do think those two are the big hitters for Manchester United going forward.
And Villa, Aidan, I mean, I suppose there's only really a handful of candidates you could look at here.
Yeah, I was thinking about Jack Grealish because he seems to be their talisman, but I'm going to go for John McGinn to score anytime. You can get that at 4-1. McGinn's been in good form this season, 3 goals, 2 assists. He's also scored 6 goals in his last 3 games for Scotland over the last month or so. So he can get a goal from midfield, there's no doubt about it. The other thing that just to add in is that he has been heavily linked with the move to Manchester United in the past, and maybe there might just be a little bit of extra incentive for him to try and impress if he feels that maybe one day he would like to play for Manchester United. So McGinn to score anytime, the Aston Villa midfielder.
OK, again, I'm going to have to edge towards Tom here, I think, because Rashford, for me at the moment, is in arguably some of the best form that he showed in patches, you have to say. He hasn't necessarily put it all together in 90 minutes, but some of his form has been sublime at Old Trafford in recent times, and I do think he's probably going to get himself on the score sheet against Villa. Let's have a look at then the long shot suggestions then for this weekend's game. Starting off with you, Tom, what are you looking at here?
Yeah, I've had a look at plenty of goals in the fixture. I think these are two sides that are better going forward than they are defensively. I've mentioned Manchester United's qualities with Rashford and Martial, but particularly against Sheffield United last weekend, defensively they looked vulnerable, and I do agree Villa have, particularly from the midfield areas, players who are capable of getting on the score sheet. So I'm looking at a Manchester United win, and over 3.5 goals, which is available at 13-5. Perhaps a little bit more tempting, a little bit more riskier as well, is over 4.5 goals and the United win, which is available at 5-1. I think it'll be an entertaining match. I do think Villa will be competitive, but ultimately United will have too much quality.
I think you agree, Aidan, as well, that there could be goals in this.
I think both teams to score and Aston Villa to win. It is a long shot, obviously. Villa to win only their second away game of the season, United to lose only their second home game of the season. But Villa to win, both teams to score, available at 11-1. I think that's got a chance of happening. It's actually happened in 3 of the last 4 Villa games that both teams have scored, that is. And also the last 3 Manchester United games in all competitions, both teams have scored. So that tells you that both are scoring and both conceding. Yeah, it would be a big ask for Villa to win, but if they're going to do it, they'll probably do it with Manchester United scoring. 11-1, I think, is good odds.
I think it is very good odds, and that's why I'm going to go with Aidan on this front, because I do think both teams will score, and if that is the case, then Villa do have an outside chance here of going on to claim the 3 points. As I say, I think at 11-1, it really does represent good value. 2-1 then in favour of Manchester United. In terms of the betting suggestions here, let us know what you think might happen at Old Trafford on Sunday via our social media pages. And of course, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel.